Thank you very much, my fellow Americans. I am very proud to announce today that we have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government. As everyone knows, I have a very powerful alternative, but I didn't want to use it at this time. Hopefully it will be unnecessary. I want to thank all of the incredible federal workers and their amazing families who have shown such extraordinary devotion in the face of this recent hardship. You are fantastic people. You are incredible patriots. Many of you have suffered far greater than anyone but your families would know or understand. And not only did you not complain, but in many cases you encouraged me to keep going because you care so much about our country and about its border security. Again, I thank you. All Americans, I thank you. You are very, very special people. I am so proud that you are citizens of our country. When I say make America great again, it could never be done without you. Great people. In a short while, I will sign a bill to open our government for 3 weeks until February 15th. I will make sure that all employees receive their back pay very quickly or as soon as possible. It'll happen fast. I am asking Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to put this proposal on the floor immediately. After 36 days of spirited debate and dialogue, I have seen and heard from enough Democrats and Republicans that they are willing to put partisanship aside, I think, and put the security of the American people first. I do believe they're going to do that. They have said they are for complete border security, and they have finally and fully acknowledged that having barriers, fencing, or walls, or whatever you want to call it, will be an important part of the solution. A bipartisan conference committee of House and Senate lawmakers and leaders will immediately begin reviewing the requests of our Homeland Security experts, and experts they are, and also law enforcement professionals who have worked with us so closely. We want to thank Border Patrol, ICE, and all law enforcement. Been incredible.
This past Friday, the president made a prepared speech from the Rose Garden. In this speech, he announced the fact that he had come to a consensus with both chambers of Congress and was able to open the government back up on a temporary basis. 3 weeks to be exact. In these 3 weeks, the president has asked that both chambers of Congress come together to come up with a government funding bill that could be approved by both chambers and get to the president's desk and get signed, and to get the negotiations started in order to make sure that we have wall funding in this government funding bill. This came with mixed reviews from people on both sides of the aisle and both sides of the issue. Many of the Trump faithful criticizing Trump for opening the government back up without having his wall funding in hand, and many who are opposed to the wall criticizing Trump because that's all that they really do. As was expected, as soon as the government opened back up, many Democrats from both chambers went to Twitter and went to the news outlets to assure the country that there was not going to be any wall funding in any of these negotiations. Many of these Democrats are suddenly on board with a surveillance system on the southern border in order to provide border security. This would include cameras and drones at strategic locations. This is an interesting topic because when President Bush suggested this same idea, many of these same Democrats who are still in Congress were highly against the idea at the time, but now they're suddenly on board with this. Notably, Lucille Roybal Allard of California has come right out and said that there is not going to be any wall funding discussed for any reason. However, the chair of the Appropriations Committee, Nita Lowey of New York, has said that we will work together for a compromise. Lowey was immediately asked how much money she would allow to come out of the appropriations in order to fund the wall, and she, of course, avoided the question. A recent Gallup poll has shown that the numbers were not great for the GOP during the shutdown. According to the poll, the approval rating for congressional Republicans has dropped to 37%, where it was previously at 45% before the government shut down. There may be a couple reasons for this, of course. Gallup is not really known for selective polling, but that's always going to be a danger anytime you do any sort of public polling except at the ballot box. And of course, we had the news outlets continually hammering on the GOP during the duration of the entire shutdown, and that is going to play on the opinions of many of the Americans across the country who would be participating in such a poll. Both political parties seem to be dead set on avoiding a second government shutdown, and immediately Congress impaneled a committee from both chambers to negotiate government funding and to try and make sure that there's wall funding negotiated as well. This committee includes 17 members from both chambers of Congress. It has 10 representatives and 7 senators. 9 of these members are Democrats and 8 of them are GOP, but there are also some other ideas that are out there to try and make sure that we don't look at another government shutdown again for at least the foreseeable future. Republican Senator Rob Portman of Ohio has suggested going so far as to passing legislation to make sure that it is illegal to shut the government down, thus taking some of the negotiations off the table, but also protecting federal workers in the process. Throughout these negotiations, the president has not taken off of the table the idea of declaring a national emergency and appropriating the funds for the wall from the Department of Defense. And there are many people out there who agree that this may be a way to incentivize Congress to appropriate the funds legislatively and make sure that it goes through the Congress and not through the executive branch. But there are others out there who remind us of the fact that this would probably either incentivize the next president, whether Democrat or Republican, to do the same for whatever pet project he or she has, or that this would not pass the Ninth Circuit Court. Many people suggest the idea that the Ninth Circuit already has a case drawn up for when the president decides to declare a national emergency in order to make sure that it gets struck down immediately. It's been almost a week at this point since the government's been opened back up, and we don't seem to be any closer to a legislative solution to continue to have the government funded for longer than 3 weeks. Both sides of the argument have dug their heels in, and neither side wants to concede anything to the other side lest the other side gets some sort of legislative win. And we are definitely looking at another shutdown coming on February 16th. But we are going to have to wait and see. The Congress has been known to surprise us before, and there have been more and more talks about a consensus and a compromise among the Democrats and Republicans in Congress. What did you think when the president opened the government back up? Do you think he caved on the wall, or do you think he's going to use this to get a legislative win into his corner? I always welcome a thoughtful and positive discussion in the comment section below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at Ed's Blog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I. Thanks as always for listening to this show and supporting this channel. And remember, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Take care.
You're always there.